Esteemed panelists and participants, a very warm welcome to this pivotal episode of the Skills Bridge Masterclass series. Why do I call it pivotal? Let's take a moment to reflect. Think of something that is eternal, something that cannot be destroyed. What word comes to your mind? If you wish, please type in the chat one or two words that comes to your mind. Similarly, what do you think about the skills mismatch? Is it also eternal? Industry leaders complained about it decades ago. They are complaining about it now, and they are already warning it will only increase in the future. That's why today's class is special. Today, we are joined by eminent leaders from the private sector, leaders who have successfully tackled skills mismatches both nationally and globally. It is a rare opportunity to learn from the best, to gain practical insights and proven strategies directly from their experiences. I am Ashwani Agrawal, Head of Skills Policy and Governance at ILO Headquarters, Geneva, and it is truly an honor to moderate today's masterclass. I am also delighted to share that participants from more than 140 countries have registered for today's session. Thank you all for being with us today. Before we begin, to ensure a smooth and engaging event, I would like to share a few important points. Please note, today's session is being recorded. The recording will be made available on the event website. You are encouraged to submit your questions at any time during the webinar using Q&A button located at the bottom of your screen. Please do not use the chat function for posting your questions. The chat function may be used to share any good practice or reports or any examples that you like to share with your other audience. It will also allow you to publicize your achievements and make networks. As is standard in a webinar format, participants' microphone and cameras are disabled. When you are posing a question, please, to the extent possible, mention the name of the panelist or speaker to whom the question is addressed. It allows them to pick the question and answer your question. After the event, we will be happy to share all presentations and resource materials with you. So now, let us begin. It is my privilege to invite Ms. Mia Sapo to deliver the welcome remark. She is the Assistant Director General for the Jobs and Social Protection Cluster at the International Labour Organization. With over 2 decades of distinguished service in the United Nations system, she has held leadership positions across various countries, including Tajikistan, Sierra Leone, Malawi, Bangladesh, and Zimbabwe. Her expertise spans post-conflict recovery, humanitarian coordination, development effectiveness, and advancing the Sustainable Development Goals. Ms. Sapo, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Ashwani, and thanks for your eloquent opening of this 11th episode of the Skills Bridge Masterclass series, focusing on bridging the skills gap. How can the private sector drive skills development and lifelong learning? Distinguished speakers and participants from around the world, I'm very pleased to join you in this conversation. We are at an inflection point. Technological advancements, climate change, demographic shifts, and trade disruptions are reshaping labor markets. Globally, skills mismatches undermine employability, productivity, and inclusive growth. Businesses play a central and indispensable role in addressing this challenge. As a primary creator of jobs globally, they have an in-depth understanding of evolving skills needs and a vested interest in developing talent pipelines to support growth and innovation. Bridging the skills gap requires collective action with governments, educational institutions, social partners, and the private sector working together. At the ILO, skills and lifelong learning are integral to our mandate of promoting decent work and social justice. We are driving several initiatives to foster private sector engagement in skills development globally. These include establishing industry-led sector skills bodies in 25 countries, focusing on skills needs assessments, developing occupational standards and curricula, delivering quality training, developing digital and green skills, and formulating skills sector strategies. A few examples: we support sector skills strategies in Kosovo, Montenegro, Ethiopia, Zambia, Cambodia, and Indonesia. We are working on aligning curricula with labor market demands in Lebanon, Panama, Vietnam, Saudi Arabia, Malawi, Kenya, and Malaysia. We are working on apprenticeships in Egypt, Rwanda, Malaysia, Tonga, and Indonesia, and digital and green skills initiatives in Albania, Panama, the Philippines, Zambia, Moldova, and Montenegro. The ILO and the International Organization of Employers, and I'm very pleased to see Roberto joining us, have been instrumental in promoting the Global Apprenticeship Network, or GAN, focusing on business-led solutions, and with valued members like ADECO also joining us in this discussion, looking at how do we expand quality apprenticeships. These initiatives have significantly increased the participation of the private sector in the skills ecosystem and policy dialogue, resulting in more responsive and future-ready systems. Key lessons emerging from this work highlight the importance of strong tripartite cooperation, sectoral focus, leveraging digital and green transitions, and recognizing informal and lifelong learning. Today's discussion, this masterclass, brings together experts to explore how private sector engagement can foster lifelong learning and bridge the skills gap. I want to thank our excellent speakers for joining and for all the participants, and I'm looking forward to a productive, searching, and insightful session. Thank you for your attention, and back to you, Ashwani.
Thank you very much, Ms. Mia Seppo, for that inspiring opening. You have highlighted that skills development driven by strong partnerships with the private sector is essential for transforming challenges into opportunities in today's fast-changing world of work. We also appreciate your valuable insights into the ILO initiatives, showing how it is promoting collaboration between private sector and governments together and creating a future-ready workforce. Building on this strong foundation, it is now my honor to introduce our keynote speaker, Mr. Roberto Suarez Santos, Secretary General of the International Organization of Employers, a globally respected leader in business advocacy. Mr. Suarez Santos represents employers in over 150 countries. Under his leadership, the IOE has grown into the world's largest private sector network, with 159 employers organizations worldwide. He has significantly strengthened IOE's influence in crucial areas such as gender, climate change, digitalization, employment, human rights, industrial relations, labor migration, and sustainable enterprises. His outstanding achievements makes him a powerful voice for the future of skills and jobs. Please join me in warmly welcoming Mr. Roberto Suarez Santos. The floor is yours, sir.
Thank you very much, Dr. Ashwani. Thank you also, Mia, for this invitation to participate in this masterclass. We are very committed to a strong skills agenda. You know that. You also refer to the IOE, the International Organization of Employers. You refer to our membership, and we always say our membership is composed by business organizations that are both representative and independent and have a convening power to change the policies. And that's what adds more value of the IOE. I can firmly assert that the private sector active engagement in skills development is not merely a responsibility, it's a strategic imperative. It's a strategic imperative for competitiveness and innovation. Skills, and you know that IOE has been strongly advocating for a global skills agenda. Skills as an agenda in the global discussions is becoming so crucial, because never like today, investing in skills development becomes a survival tool. Never like today, investing in skills makes the difference for an individual, for a company, in terms of being a labor market insider, or for a company to survive and grow, but also for a country to succeed in many areas, including climate change anticipation. Never like today, skill shortages have been so evident and so damaging for prosperity. We predicted it. We predicted it when we were discussing the future of work. We predicted that there will be a skill shortages, but now we have it with us, and it's damaging capacities of companies, individuals, and society to become more prosperous. And this is affecting both developed but also developing economies. It's not just a lack of high technical skills, but also lack of middle technical skills in different sectors like construction, hospitality. We are happy to be here discussing with you, but also trying to find solutions. We have some data that are very illustrative. 18% of the global population, 18%, are still unable to read and write. We have also data on connectivity. It's still almost half of the entire world population have not access to internet. At the same time, we know that automation is affecting will affect 1.1 billion jobs out of the current 6 billion of jobs that exist right now. And we know that according to the World Bank, 7 out of 10 young people are economically disengaged due to the lack of adequate skills. We also know, and that's a recent survey that we did with ILO and IOE, that the skills cycle, meaning by that the predictions of skills, has been shortened from 5 years to 3 years. At company level, it's more and more difficult to predict what the skills will be for the coming years. The engagement of the private sector is not important, it's a must, and we have to do much better to engage it in a responsible manner. How we can do that? We need much stronger collaboration with educational training systems. It's often the case that there are many limitations for this collaboration, including ideological limitations. We have to look also at the skills recognition through new informal ways. We know that there's much work being done at domestic level with national recognition systems, but still the digital credentials and the digital means are still not there in terms of being embraced by domestic, but also by global players. A wider approach for mutual recognition of skills and qualification is needed, and the private sector engagement there is also critical. Still, we need much more incentives, and by incentives, we don't just stop on fiscal incentives, but also regulatory incentives. And for that, PPPs, private-public partnerships, should be much more efficient. We need to work on efficient partnerships. But also, we need to work on mentality and awareness. The awareness of an individual, but also of a company, of a businesswoman, a businessman, that if you do not invest on continuous skills and skills anticipation, you will not be in the market, you will not be competitive. We need to have this sense of responsibility much more anchored in our mentality. I don't want to elaborate what the benefits for business are in terms of embracing a better skills agenda, a much more ambitious skills agenda, because we all know that. I just want to provide some ideas on how action could come in the coming future. An area of ambition could be to strengthen what we could call national skills partnerships, national skills compacts. Governments, unions, employers must co-design frameworks that prioritize high growth sector, but also middle growth sector to integrate vulnerable groups. We could also work on sector skills council, anticipating skills needs for just transition, for climate change needs by sectors, especially in developing countries. We could work much better identifying what are the incentives that works, what are the regulations that can do better, what are the frameworks for collaboration with universities, with educational systems and private sector. We can strengthen also a very powerful tool, which is social dialogue. How social dialogue can much better drive the agenda of skills anticipation. Mia made a reference to apprenticeships and the initiative that we have with the GAN, how we can also strengthen apprenticeships and internships in formal qualification, bridging theory and practice while fostering loyalty among trainees. We also should bring digital upskilling programs and platforms to developing economies, including AI, cybersecurity, green skills. Using digital platforms can make a difference. And we know like countries like India are already having an ambitious agenda there. We should not also forget small and medium companies and how their specificities can be better embracing policies. And last but not least, in terms of recognitions of skills, we need to have a global agenda. I will not call it global harmonization because it's very difficult, but to start working with more ambition on global standards of recognitions of competencies and certifications. Let's move from dialogue to action. Let's work together ensuring that every company, every worker thrives in the future work, in the present work, I would say. And thank you very much for listening to me. Count with our commitment, count with our willingness to partner with you in an ambitious manner on this agenda. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Suarez Santos, for your very inspiring and powerful keynote address. You have highlighted the factors that motivate businesses to promote skills development and also the challenges in ensuring inclusiveness. You have shared the IOA's global vision for advancing skilling and made clear recommendations to strengthen private sector initiatives, including efficient partnerships. Your messages are clear to the businesses. Investing in skills today is essential to building a resilient and innovative workforce. And finally, you very rightly emphasize moving from dialogue to action. Very much appreciated. Thank you once more. We are truly grateful for your leadership and for the IOA's unwavering commitment to shaping a more skilled, resilient, and inclusive workforce. Thank you once again. Thank you. Now I invite all the attendees to participate in the first audience poll. I'll request the host to please launch the audience poll. Please, while you see both the poll together, can you just only answer to the first question at this stage? So the question is, to what extent are you satisfied with the private sector driving skills development and lifelong learning in your country? Please choose one option only. Kindly show you, can you kindly show the result, please? So we see that is quite evenly distributed. You can see that largest proportion, people say around 30% say They are neither satisfied nor dissatisfied. The next largest category is the 28% who says dissatisfied. Then 25% says satisfied, while 15% say very satisfied. So we can say there is a lot of there's some good practices are also there, but at the same time, a lot of improvements needs to be made. And that's why our next set of panelists who comes from the different parts of the world, they are, I think, in the top level where the respondents would have said very satisfied. So they are going to share some of the excellent practices through which the private sector is leading skills and lifelong learning initiatives together with government in their country. And for first speaker today is Mr. Vedmani Tiwari, CEO NSDC. Host, can you please now? Yes, thank you. He is the CEO of the National Skills Development Authority Council Corporation. In 2008, the government of India established NSDC to significantly enhance private sector initiative in vocational training. NSDC is a very unique PPP model. With 51% of equity is held by the private sector, while 49% by the government. And it is a not-for-profit company. So, host, can you just launch the brief video on the NSDC?
India is rising. By 2030, we will have the world's largest working age population, a generation bursting with ambition, creativity, and raw potential. To harness this power, we must equip our youth with the skills of the future. This is where vision, innovation, and opportunity converge to reimagine the future at NSDC. Yet, the journey of building a skilled nation is not one we can take alone. It requires partnership, collaboration, and the strength of one of India's most powerful forces, the private sector. India's private sector is dynamic, innovative, and constantly evolving. From startups to global corporations, businesses across industries are driving the country's economic engine. But behind every successful enterprise lies a common denominator of skilled people. Together with the private sector, NSDC is leading a movement, not just to build a skilled workforce, but to build a skilled nation. With over 700 apprenticeship-based courses, more than 1 million internship opportunities, and industry-aligned micro-credentials, this is where we are providing real skills for real jobs. Under CSR partnerships, 147 high-impact projects transforming over millions' lives, empowering women, uplifting communities, and reaching the last mile. As the world moves towards digital-first economies, NSDC is already future-ready. Skilling is going digital. With immersive tech, intelligent job mapping, and on-demand learning, NSDC is building India's digital skilling ecosystem, anytime, anywhere, for everyone. Across 36 sector skill councils, NSDC sets standards that matter. And behind every success story, there is a powerful ecosystem. Together, we're not just building a system, we're building the world's most inclusive skilling network. NSDC Academy, we are also connecting academia with employability. Through innovative programs, students are preparing for real-world roles before they even graduate. When you partner with NSDC, you don't just invest in skills, you invest in lives, in careers. Together, we are not just shaping careers, we are shaping India's future.
Thank you very much. Now, today's session offers an opportunity to engage with Mr. Tiwari and understand the purpose and vision of NSDC, the achievements and recommendations that may be relevant for other countries. Mr. Tiwari needs no introduction. He's a well-known figure and has participated in our earlier master classes. We are very grateful to him also. And under his leadership, the NSDC has made many, many big achievements also. So today, basically, I have my first question to Mr. Tiwari to you is that when NSDC was established, India already had national institutions such as National Council for Vocational Training and Directorate General of Training to regulate and promote vocational training. So why did government decide to establish another national institution, the NSDC?
So first of all, good morning to you, Mr. Ashwini, and thanks a lot for ILO to give this opportunity to NSDC to partner this very important dialogue. I also would like to welcome the very illustrious panel of experts who are participating in this dialogue. And as you told that the interest that it has generated, participants from 140 countries joining in. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening to all the participants from whichever part of the world you are joining in. Now, coming to your question that why did Government of India think of an institution which lied outside the boundaries of a vocational education system? So in 2008, India had done about 20 years of its economic reforms. And it emerged that we need to enhance our game when it comes to providing skilled workforce to private sector. We were attracting investments, but the question that was being asked that do we have enough skilled workforce which can be relied upon by the investors? And as the dialogue continued, the question that emerged that most of the vocational education system or the training ecosystem is generally hears the voice from the academic world and does not have a voice from private sector. To give the voice to private sector, a public-private partnership was thought of, where NSDC has a unique structure. The Government of India is the largest shareholder, but chose not to be the majority shareholder. And the majority of the board of the NSDC is from the private sector. And then NSDC started working with private sector through setting up sector skill councils. As you saw in the video, we have set up 36 sector skill councils. And through these sector skill councils, we are now connected with more than 400 industry associations and close to 40,000 private sector employees directly, which helped us develop qualifications which are relevant for private sector. They're not coming from a perspective of how the learning should happen, but they are more constructive coming from the private sector. So I would say that this need that the private sector should have a voice in developing the skilled workforce, that led to this unique public-private partnership which NSDC is. And the success of NSDC has been, you can just see from that perspective that over last 15 years, the NSDC could facilitate the skilling of close to 45 million individuals.
Thank you very much. I think you have also touched upon the need to set up NSDC, basically to give lead to the private sector. And also you have also mentioned some of the impact it has already made in this area. Now, you have made several achievements and taken several initiatives. So which ones of those initiatives or partnership do you think have been the most effective in aligning training with the market demand?
I would say that the digital ecosystem that we built, the NSDC Digital has established a platform where all the participants can now collaborate with each other. You were just mentioning, and we also heard Ms. Mia talking about that the whole world talks about this skill mismatch. The problem is that there are multiple stakeholders. And how do you establish a real-time dialogue among these multiple stakeholders. And that's where we took this lead, that we set up our team, NSDC Digital, which has now established a platform where employers can now post their demand for their regular workforce, they can post their demand for interns, they can post their demand for apprentices. Now, academic institutions can also log into the same platform. They find that which way the demands are moving, and the candidates also have the visibility of this. Wherever there is a gap, the training ecosystem jumps into this and tries to solve the problem which academic institution or the employer themselves are not able to solve. So I'll say that this NSDC Digital, setting up a digital ecosystem is one of the very powerful initiative that NSDC has launched. The other thing that I would say is that until now, this has been more, the dialogue has been like it is a private sector's responsibility to inform the training and skill ecosystem so that the workforce is ready. My own private sector experience says that the dialogue has to start from the needs of the private sector. I have worked in private sector for over 3 decades. And that's the attitudinal change that NSDC has brought in. When we engage with private sector, we are there not to tell them that it is your responsibility, it is your national duty to give inputs for curriculum setting or for telling the ecosystem how it should respond. We engage with the private sector, what is your need and how can we serve your needs better? And then we do the convening of the training and educational ecosystem to deliver that need. This has found a very positive response from the private ecosystem. Now, India's largest businesses are working with the NSDC ecosystem. And these are not government-funded programs. The other big thing that I have found is that the financing solutions are extremely important. Whenever there is a private sector directly taking charge of the financing of skilling, reskilling, upskilling, they are more involved in that. You have more effective programs. And similarly, we work with individuals that they should be able to, how do we help them to find financing solutions to get the skilling done for their district. So I think the convergence of these efforts through digital platform and combining the financial resources of public, private, and individuals is the key factor which has led to the active private sector involvement in the skilling efforts in India.
No, thank you. That's very, very important points. Now, coming to policy making is still a domain of the government, but they have to do together with employers organizations, workers organization, industry, and other stakeholders. How do you articulate the voice of private sector for policy making, and when the government is designing new national skilling initiatives?
My personal belief is that the policy is most effective when it empowers the various stakeholders in implementation of that. The policy has to provide tools where the relevant stakeholders can themselves take charge of what they want to do. And in this context, your question about how do we make private sector voices heard, as I told you that the 36 sector skill councils with more than 400 industry associations is the true representation of the voice of the private sector. The another innovation that the government of India has done is that every sector skill council not only has representation from private sector on its board, but also has a line ministry. So it's not the skill ministry alone. Just for your information, like for telecom sector skill council, the telecom ministry is one of the participants on the board of the sector skill council. This ensures that it becomes the responsibility of the line ministry to provide relevant inputs. And both private sector and government sectors sit in the same equilibrium to decide the policies. Almost every policy that the government of India is now pursuing for economic development has an essential component of skill development. and inputs for that aspect of policy making is coming from the private sector. Other great factor that I would say is the national education policy that the government of India launched, and it is unique in the sense that now individuals can have academic outcomes, the micro-credential based lifelong learning that we talk about, by leveraging this policy. The national education policy enables any individual to earn academic credits either through academic programs or through training programs or while they are at work. So apprenticeship, internships, and real work at the workplace are also transforming into a academic outcome. This has become a very interesting opportunity for individuals and businesses to, and they are actively pursuing this. So I think the two very important thing is that the policy should be empowering, and second, there should be a continuous dialogue with the private sector, which is helping government of India to shape the skill ecosystem in India.
Oh, thank you, Mr. Tiwari, for this insightful discussion. I think I like the point which you have mentioned also. One of the challenge many countries face is the fragmentation in the governance, when different ministries are also involved in the skills development, but they do not talk to each other also. But you have given a very good example that in the board of the sector skills councils in India, you also have a representative of particular line ministry, so that their voice is also heard, and the voice of the private sector in the local sectoral association goes to that ministry also, apart from the education and training ministry or the skills development ministry. Thank you very much for those things. We'll come back to you in the final round again, taking your overall views on the private sector engagement. Now, let me allow to go to our next panelist. I'm delighted to welcome Ms. Bettina Scholle, a global leader in labor market policy and advocacy as head of Group Public Affairs at the ADICO Group and president of the World Employment Confederation. She plays a key role in shaping labor initiatives. Her commitment to inclusive labor markets and lifelong learning has earned her numerous global honors, and I'm happy to congratulate her on her recent award for her outstanding contribution to employment and skills development. Thank you very much. Bettina has prepared a short video and a presentation to explain how the ADICO Group is promoting skills and lifelong learning at global, regional, national, and at enterprise level. Let us first, before we start interacting with her, let us watch the video first. I'll request the host to play the video. It's a very short 1-minute video only.
The world of work is shifting. New forms of employment are replacing old. Digitization is forcing rapid evolution. Organizations must transform their workforces to succeed. Individuals must acquire new skills or fall behind. It's time for us to step forward and lead the way. To reinvent career and talent management. To build lifelong employability. With 3 strong business units delivering solutions for the future of work. Powered by cutting-edge digital and data-driven insight. Harnessing our global scale and local know-how, with the customer at the center and our people at the heart, to change millions of lives for the better, to help people exceed their potential, to deliver on our purpose, making the future work for everyone. Welcome to the evolution. Welcome to the future at work.
Thank you, Bettina, for this teaser video. Now I request you to further amplify the key points through your presentation. The floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Dr. Ashwani, and what an absolute pleasure to be with all of you today. I, of course, recognize my fellow panelists. It's a true honor to be with you and with all our guests on this session. Now, believe it or not, but those of you who are shrewd observers, which all of you are, I'm sure, will have noted there was a building in this movie, and I'm actually greeting you today from this building, which happens to be at the headquarters of the Adecco Group in Switzerland, in Zurich. I feel very blessed in a way to be working for a Swiss-based company that operates in more than 60 countries in the world and offers that full breadth of solutions, among them indeed the skilling solutions that we will be diving into and that we are diving into today, because Switzerland, of course, is the one country which best exemplifies so many things. First of all, to just mention two, well, it is the country that has managed to best marry the interests of an education system, of an employment system with a labor market, and bring all those stakeholders together that are needed to create the ecosystems that we're talking about. And it is that private-public partnership epitome, I think, that we're all after. And so again, I am very actually confident in knowing that, well, if it works in one country, why shouldn't it work in others? Knowing, of course, that there are always specificities. Let me come to what the Adecco Group does as this global leader in workforce solutions, focusing, of course, when it comes to skills, on the one hand, on activating that hidden talent, if we may use that terminology of today. So those are all of those and all of us who actually don't get the chance to make it onto the labor market, but would have all the ingredients. And in a way, all they need is that little support or that bigger support. And all they need is somebody who points them in the direction of accessing the labor market. Then the group is incredibly active on re- and upskilling of talent and also in talent mobility topics. Now, let me come to a few examples of how the group promotes lifelong learning and engages in shaping the skills policies that we're talking about. And what I brought to you today are examples, well, that are not Swiss and in a way not, of the global north, but I wanted to share with you how one of our esteemed group of colleagues who all operate under a brand called General Assembly. So what you see here is GA. This is part of the Adecco Group. Well, they have been focusing over the past years in that focus that they have on skilling and specifically on digital skilling, on working directly with governments to build tech academies. So this is one way for the private sector to engage, very concrete, and I'll come to that just now. The second one, of course, is to partner between, well, private sector, which is companies like the Adecco Group, and public sector, public companies on whatever initiatives are out there. And the approach of the Adecco Group almost is whatever initiative there is, we should be supporting and we should be engaging in. And then, and this is very important, and I will come to that a few more times, and Dr. Ved alluded to it, the financing piece is absolutely key. So whatever solution we're finding to remove those financial barriers for the workers and in a way for the companies will help us get further. Let me just have a quick deep dive into those tech academies that I've just alluded to, because so far we have actually set up 4 tech academies. And you will see here, there is a mention of Bahrain and a mention of Singapore. So 2 countries that have recognized that re- and upskilling their workforce, specifically in tech, is going to make the difference. Those are examples that have helped us now to engage in Montenegro, and we are engaging also for quite some years in Saudi Arabia, again, where we are upskilling in all those countries talent on digital skills, a very, very concrete example. I wanted to share with you another example. And again, I think that's what you need, right? It's to know as closely as possible how such cooperation could look like. Here, this is the example of a government partnership where, in this case, in the United States, and specifically in the city of New York, we have picked up workers who, well, traditionally are stuck in the way that their path is unfolding. And so we have picked them up in programs where they are actually going through part-time data analysis courses, We link that up with career development solutions, and before we know it, they are actually working at our partners, at our clients. Here, we built this program specifically with Uber. Let me give you one more example. This is more the classic area, which might seem very familiar or more familiar to many of you, which is we actually run fully fledged training operations in certain countries. A classic country is Spain, where we offer all types of courses, always built on demand by our clients and our partners, and are there indeed acting as one of the major skilling partners from the private sector perspective in those countries. Two more elements, if I may. One, public-private partnership engagement. And Mrs. Mia, of course, alluded to it. There is one engagement the Adecco Group is particularly proud of it out of all of them, which is the one in the Global Apprenticeship Network. The group has been a de facto founding member. We actually joined just 6 months after the initiative was founded. And we've even had the honor of chairing the Global Apprenticeship Network for 2 terms. Still very involved. The key here again is that action on the ground. And I'd like to here call the attention to the national networks that the Global Apprenticeship Network is setting up. The latest are actually in India and, believe it or not, in the United States. Because yes, the United States is in current times looking for that support and that public-private sector engagement. And the Global Apprenticeship Network, the US chapter, will be part of all of the initiatives that are happening right now in the United States, of course, with the support of the Adecco Group. The group, as I mentioned earlier, is supporting whatever initiatives are out there, and that's why we are also engaged in initiatives such as the European Alliance for Apprenticeships, and then, of course, via our sector engagement with the World Employment Confederation, which was mentioned earlier. So my message here to anybody in the private sector is, do make that engagement and cooperation, bring that to life, go and engage with partners, because then you will make the difference. And that engagement we do, of course, also in terms of advocacy. You see here an overview of positionings, of very strong positionings that the group has taken over the years on skilling, on lifelong learning. I would say that we're one of the voices that is looking to drive the conversation further and to act as this private partner as is expected from us. This is why, for instance, we have a position on individual learning accounts, which is one of the instruments known when it comes to financing. And we are, of course, also involved currently in one of the big major collaborations on policy, which is within the European Union, where we have formulated a position. Let me end up with, one note, which is really that when it comes to policy, things are shifting slightly. And I'd just like to leave you with this, teasing you, because, labor market frameworks, they need to adapt, right? And these days, employers are not really in the same position as they were years ago when it comes to re- and upskilling workforces. They used to train for incremental developments, as we say it. Now they need to train for massive transformation. And there was also an expectation from governments that employers would do that and that the government would support those out of work. That has shifted as well. So we are living in transformational times also when it comes to that. I would say up for us now to move on and establish what the next steps are. And let me stop sharing. I've just been trying to fiddle with my technology, but I've got it now. Back to you, Dr. Ashwani.
Thank you very much, Bettina, for sharing excellent examples of how at the national level, also with different countries, you have performed academies, and then at the global level, for example, through GAN, at the regional level, with the European Commission, you are collaborating and promoting lifelong learning actively. Thank you very much. And one question, since you are representing a very big company, one of the questions which comes to mind of everyone in the fast changing world of work, anticipating future skills demand is highly challenging. what is your experience and how does your company do it?
The key here, and it was mentioned actually already before, is to listen. And it's to be very close to the actual labor market, to the market, which means here to the companies that are operating. We've always seen that there are many skilling and training activities that are wonderfully built. They make a lot of sense of paper, but we say that they skill people into the void. So if the starting point is not the demand and it is not the visibility, very, very practically, of how many people in what specific sectors or companies and what the exact skills are needed, then we know by experience the impact will be much less, if not null, and the success will be much less. So how we anticipate is by being there with our clients, with our partners, picking up what the need is, what the demand is, and then from there, building what is needed. And that is as much in the technical space as in the AI space, and by the way, in the leadership space as well. So we see a lot of needs these days to work on the leadership skills that are needed, right, in the current times, and we do that as well.
That's great. I think listening to the clients who are basically doing the businesses, understanding their current and future requirement, very important points you mentioned. Another point, while everyone talks about importance of engaging private sector, but still we know that in some countries the involvement of private sector is good, but in most countries not many enterprises engage. Even for example, even if you have to expand apprenticeship, not many companies offer. Even for example, the countries which are considered very strong in apprenticeship also, let me not name, but we all know, even there also not all companies offer apprenticeships also, or some other programs. So in your experience, what are the two biggest challenges for private companies in engaging actively in skills and lifelong learning, and how can they be overcome?
No, and Dr. Shwani, this is such an important point. And, I've had the pleasure of being involved for over 15 years, and we haven't made enough of a difference, right? We haven't moved the needle enough. I mean, there's been a lot of countries and actually a lot of companies that have gotten engaged, but it's still not enough. And that's why the biggest challenges I see for private companies is still the financing. It's still the financing. I alluded to it earlier. Dr. Wade alluded to it. I said I would come back to that. We need to get that point right, because businesses, as you know, and in times like now, with uncertainty, with having to cut costs, it is a reality that then the training and the skilling programs will be among the first ones to be affected. So we need to find ways on the financing side to take that burden not off, but to again find the right mix. The second piece is around the actual design of the skilling program. So for the private sector, there might be a willingness, and again, in those countries where it works, we see that they actually know then how to move ahead and to design those programs as it is. In many, many countries, for many, many companies, that is a big hurdle, a big obstacle. And that is where knowing that partners are there, that of course players like the Adecco Group are there, but that initiatives exist like the Global Apprenticeship Networks that are looking at sharing that know-how, that of course the International Labour Organization has wonderful, absolutely wonderful materials. That is absolutely key. And maybe a last one as part of the designing of the programs here is a big part of problems we see in many countries as well, is that then the companies, let's say they found the financing, they got the program set up and designed, but then they say, oh, now we cannot source, we cannot find the actual people who will go through the program. We got it all, but nobody's coming to us. And that is where, again, companies like the Adecco Group are specialized in, making sure that match also happens.
No, thank you very much. These are the very important points you have mentioned. And that, set the stage. For example, you're saying financing is one of the important issue. So that's a set of the stage for having the second audience poll, which is directly relates to that one. So I will request the host to please launch the audience poll too. But before that, I will thank you again once more, Bettina, for being with us. Please remain with us. I'm sure there must be a lot of questions participants are asking on the Q&A box. Please look at some of the questions and try to answer there. Thank you very much. So, dear participants, as you can see, the second audience poll is on your screen. Please mention all the policy options may be important, but which of the two of them you consider are the most important one and effective in encouraging private sector involvement in skills development. We'll wait for another 20 seconds before we close the poll. Dear host, shall we close the poll now? If there are enough responses are there, please show the results. Okay, interesting. The largest, very large percent, 60% of the votes has gone to increasing private sector participation in developing skills policy and regulatory framework. Very important, naturally very important, because that's the starting point. This is a policy which guides the various incentives, creates the enabling environment for various stakeholders to participate, and how the training program can be designed and conducted. The next most important one is coming, very interestingly, implementing industry-led skills standards and certification system. I never expected that this will be the number 2. So that means, which relates to our previous question also, how to understand the skills needs. So clearly the audience is saying that it is the private sector which knows the skills needs, and they should be the one who should be in the lead in developing skills standard, and of course in ensuring the quality through a certification system. And then of course we got nearly equal, and it's completely equal, the tax incentives and offering capacity building support and funding for SME. Interestingly, but if you see here, the financing issue has not come on the top of that one, but it could be because maybe we have also this audience poll is not only for the private sector, but it also mixed audience from the government also, but it is still quite high also, it has gone. So now we can close the poll, and I think it set the stage for going to our next panelist, also next topic, which is going to be very, very interesting. Now, so far we have discussed with NSDC a perspective from a national level, a national authority or national corporation, how it can promote private sector engagement. Then we talk from the perspective of a large private sector company. Now we go to a very important aspect, which is public or government vocational training center. These are the backbones for skilling young people, and also nowadays reskilling and upskilling to some extent of the workers in most of the countries. Most of the countries use this method, but then we also know this method has a lot of challenges. A lot of challenges is that vocational training is quite expensive compared to general education. So many government doesn't have enough resources to invest to keep the infrastructure up to date. And also we get a lot of criticism of output of these training institute in terms of both from the businesses as well as the graduates, who feels the quality and relevance of training is not appropriate, and there are a lot of skills mismatches are there. Still, what we find that from time to time, governments make huge investments, even by taking loans from the development partners. But we have seen the results are not sustainable and encouraging. Temporarily, there's some improvement, but they go to the original state. These institutions go to original state very soon, even sometimes by the end of the project itself. So today I'm going to share a very fascinating real story of how public-private initiatives can transform government vocational training institutes. And this story is from India. And I'm taking you more than 25 years ago, when a massive World Bank funded vocational training project was implemented to improve training infrastructure in about 500 vocational training institutes. While the project implementation was going smoothly, during the midterm evaluation, it was found that one of the components, which was like a hidden component, but very crucial one, strengthen industry-institute interaction. No one has taken care of that one. Maybe there was no budget allocated to that one. So the full focus was on building the training infrastructure and other aspects, but this important aspect was ignored. And it was considered that unless this PPPP or III, whatever you may call it, is strengthened, the investment will not be sustainable and will not yield good results. So in fact, the project was put on a freeze unless the government take a substantial action to improve it. So fortunately, while this was could be an unfortunate action, but fortunately, it became a trigger for development of an innovative approach to manage government vocational training institute in collaboration with the local industry. And a very innovative model was developed. Considering it's very innovative, innovation is always say is in a particular context. In a particular context in which those institutes at that time was purely managed through the government. So much so that the majority stake on those board or committees were given to the local industry, including the chairmanship was given to the local industry. And then a pilot project was launched in 5 training institutes jointly by the government and Confederation of Indian Industry, which is the largest industry association in India. And the results were fantastic in terms of employment, in terms of internal revenue generation, capacity development. And for example, I'm showing, maybe if I can show the slide of one of the training institute. Let me try. Let me share, but then maybe it's been more complicated at this stage because of multiple screen. What I will do, I'll just mention that one. The initial basically employment rate in that training institute, which was just about 26%, or it used to hover around say 30% only, not more than that one. Within a short period of time, 3-4 years, it increased to about 70% or 80%, and then from there, in few years' time, it increased to 96%. You can imagine, and it was not like a informal employment. Even the companies from other countries were coming and for taking the campus interviews there. And it is my pleasure basically today that one of the co-architects of that program, who was chairing the Confederation of Indian Industries Northern Region Committee and was the CEO of a company, Professor Bijlani, I could locate him after 25 years and convince him to join this master class to share his perspective. And let me welcome him. Welcome, Professor Bijlani, to this master class. So my question to you is that the Institute Management Committee at that, say, in those pilot institutes, pilot project, including in the training center in Solon and few others demonstrated significant improvement in performance. As I mentioned, the employment rate increased from say about 26% to 96% and remains sustainable for years there. Now, could you reflect on the key lessons learned from this pilot program? What were the key critical success factors?
Thank you, Ashwini, and thank you, first of all, for, as you said, locating me and inviting me. I really am very grateful. And what I have to say really flows directly from the high-level perspective that Mia Seppo shared with us, and Roberto Soares spoke, and more recently, Bettina Schaller shared those experiences. So what I'm going to focus on is really at the more granular level, at the micro level, at the institute level, on what are the success factors that made us so successful at that time. And maybe there are a lot of lessons to learn from the initiatives that we are going to take now under the much wider umbrella of NSDC and a very strong leadership at NSDC. So first point that I want to raise is one of that autonomy requires capacity. There was much talk about giving the authority at the institute level and industry level, at the local levels. But our experience was that while the institute management committees, those are the organizations that we called, which was the Industry Institute Interactions, the IMCs, the framework granted greater autonomy in areas such as procurement, staffing, and curriculum decisions. But the institution that had the managerial capacity to operationalize it succeeded. And that is the example that you are giving of a very high rise in employability and employment, which was in a town called Solon in a state of Himachal Pradesh in northern part of India. And in vocational training institutes, ITIs as they are called, the ITI Solon, committed leadership and local industry champions help translate autonomy into action. So that's the first point I will flag for success factor, is that be mindful of the capacity, the digestive capacity of an institute before we go and give them the autonomy or to encourage industry institute interaction. The second point I'll flag is one of industry engagement. Now, the success of the institute at Solon that you referred to relied on partnerships with local industries and facilitated by the industry members and the chair of the institute management committee, which was invariably a local industry leader. That's important. The chair was the local industry leader close to the institute. And the regular industry participation is required for responsive training ecosystem. Institutes where such collaboration was symbolic, because people just wanted their name to be associated, the IMC model underperformed. And I have several examples of these, and I can share with people who have interest. The third point I would flag is one of leadership and institutional ownership. The institution with committed principles, that's the heads of the institutions, and IMC chairs, drove reform and innovation. And there's a whole list of reform and innovation I can speak about. In contrast, others have struggled due to frequent leadership changes, unclear roles, or lack of interest from appointed industry representatives. I just want to underline that because this is a point that is often overlooked. Where one of the institutes where I was the chair at that time, and we were working very closely with the principal, suddenly we realized overnight that the principal was transferred, because transfers and promotions and of course selection was in the hands of the government, the Department of Industrial Training. And whatever reasons they had for transferring, we had to make strong representations with the authorities that be, and were able to convince them. But leadership changes without involvement of industry who chaired the Institute Management Committee was a block, a hindrance in certain cases. The fourth and the last point for success factor, I would talk about the state level support and policy alignment. The state, in this case, the state of Himachal Pradesh and other examples in the state of Punjab, the state provided timely fund disbursements and support for capacity building for IMC faculty. That's important because the faculty needed capacity building by secondment to the industry or release from their teaching responsibilities to attend training programs, and that was actively supported by the state at that time. In some other states, delays in fund flows and administrative bottlenecks diluted the IMC effectiveness. So in conclusion, to respond to your question, Ashwini, the Institute Management Committee model demonstrates that vocational training institutes have potential, but decentralization must be matched with capacity building, accountability, and ecosystem level support, not just structural autonomy. Thank you.
Thank you. Another question, as we are discussing with all the panelists, is that, and it was also reflected in our audience poll, and you have been working with company, as individual company, as CEO, then with the industry association. So from your perspective, what drives such partnership? What motivates industry leaders to collaborate with the training institutes? Now I'm focusing not at the national level, not at the systems level. I'm talking particularly with the local industry collaborating with a particular training institute. What motivates them?
I think that's a great question. And I think this was also alluded to by Bettina in her presentation, when we talked about the financial perspective of training. So industry motivation, when I was deeply involved at the institute level to make them a success, and I had to be talking with industry representatives all the time. And this is what I saw on industry motivation. First and foremost was access to skills talent. Companies face skill gaps. And as you mentioned right in the beginning, this is an area of perennial interest. And maybe this will continue. It was there 15 years ago, 20 years ago, and I will take a bet that we will be talking about these issues some years down the road as well. So I think there was a skill gap and they were staring in the face. They were spending resources on new recruits. They were spending money and time and energy on training people because they were not adequately trained when they were coming to them. And training new hires is expensive and time consuming. And collaborating with the vocational training training providers enables the firms to externalize part of this cost through co-designing curricula, shaping learning outcomes, and hiring candidates who are pre-aligned to their needs. So this was the first level, I think, of motivation. And it was a financial, we were speaking to their financial interests. And the other one, maybe lower down the food chain, was the corporate social responsibility and brand value. The companies that associated themselves with these institutes developed a strategic CSR initiative, supporting local training institutes enhance their corporate reputation, strengthen their community ties, and fulfill their environmental, social governance, the ESG commitments. And the last one, by way of motivation, was influence on policy. So through engagement in sector skills councils, which have been now formed, IMCs and the national skilling forums, industry leaders gained a voice in influencing regulatory direction. So that is, those are the basic motivations, but I could also speak about the government actions to deepen engagement. But that is the answer to your question on industry motivation.
Thank you very much. I think now I'm looking at the time also because time is passing very fast. So I'll also give an opportunity for all the panelists for a final 1 minute round, final round for 1 minute to answer a final question. But before going to that one, I think now I could find that particular slide. Let me share that particular slide, which shows the performance. It's very important to see this one. It is an eye opener. For example, can you see my screen?
Yes.
Good. Okay, so this was like you can see vertical line that was end of 1998. 98 when was the pre-reform period, and then 99 the reform started. And if you see the employment rate, which was about 26%, it increased to 87% within a period of about 4 years only. And from there, then it went on to stabilize around plus 90%, 96%, 95%, which is a big achievement. And I was amazed that from the Middle East also, there are many companies used to come who for direct campus interview and selecting, which is unprecedented at the level of these institutions, which are more like a skilled worker level also. So which was coming. And also there was another one very significant one in terms of internal revenue generation. Before this initiative was taken, the internal revenue generation was very minimal, close to zero only. But after a certain point of time, the internal revenue generation became 50% to the government budget. So it made a big difference because the IMC could use this money for improvement the way they wanted. The decisions were their own, how to utilize this money for the improvements in the training institute. So I will stop here, but I will say this particular example. Let me just stop my screen sharing also. I think it's already stopped. Okay, I think you can just Professor Bijlani, can you confirm you are seeing our screen only, not the.
Well, I'm seeing now we are seeing just the two of us. Yes, this
wonderful. Thank you. So basically, as Professor Bijlani has mentioned, at the time he was the key architect from the industry side, because unless you need a champion from the industry also, because you cannot just, if the government goes and try to convince industries they should participate, they should take the ownership, they will not be convinced, because they have always suspicion behind, government is not consistent. They may say something, but tomorrow another person will come in the position, they may not be consistent also. So, but when a industry person, a CEO of a company goes to other CEOs and convinces them, it makes a difference. So he acted as a champion from the industry side, but also I have to acknowledge it was not only industry, it was together with the government side. And that time, there was Mr. Krishnan, who was the secretary, who made a big difference. And of course, I worked with Mr. Bijlani in co-designing this particular design completely. And today in the audience, we have Mr. Sethi also, who was the DDG at that time, made a significant contribution to. I wanted to have the principal of ITI Solent today, but he has a very good moment today. It's a marriage of his daughters, so he couldn't join. Otherwise, I would brought him, because for success of these things, he was like the kingpin there. Whatever policy advice comes from the industry, whatever comes from the government, but ultimately is the head of the institution. If it is not motivated, if it is not can take all the staff member and students with him in carrying out this reform, it is not possible. So it basically requires everyone's equal efforts for that one. Now with this one, I think,
Shani, with your permission, I just want to supplement one important point. You talked about revenue generation, and I want to say that revenue generation was internal to the institute. It was not given by outside, and the innovative ways we will not go into were actually designed by the institute management committee to generate funds for the institute. And I do want to underline that point, that it is within the potential of the institute to generate its own funds.
Wonderful. So now I will, because of time constraint, I will request all I can see there the Q&A button is very active. A lot of questions are being raised and a lot of questions are being answered. Thank you very much to the panelists and all other experts who are supporting this one. I'll request also Professor Bijlani look into those ones. I'm sure there must be many questions for you also, and other panelists also. Please try to answer as much questions as possible. Now I'll go to a final round of 1 minute each to the all the panelists, starting all the three panelists, means starting with Mr. Vedmani Tiwari, then to Bettina, and then to Professor Bijlani. Question is, what advice would you offer to governments and the private sector to strengthen the collaboration? Give 1 point each only, not more than many points. Mr. Tiwari, please.
So I would definitely suggest that the skilling is the joint responsibility of government and private sector, because the governments can play a role only when a person is about to join a workforce. Once people join workforce, it becomes responsibility of the private sector to do the reskilling, upskilling for them and throughout their lifetime. So it's a joint dialogue, and both have to come forward to take responsibility of this. Thank you.
Now, Bettina, your turn, please.
Thank you so much. And joint responsibility, yes. So take action on it. Be very intentional. This is my advice, right? I mean, if we now go, Ashwani, you said that the collaboration is already there, but then treat it like a business plan. Go back to the data, look at where are the areas where skilling needs to happen, exactly on which skills, and then put programs behind it, put obviously funds behind it, give the responsibility to somebody, but be very intentional behind it.
No, very, very important points. So we are coming now, Professor Bijlani.
I would say equipment and buildings are necessary, but they are not sufficient. Throwing funds at the institutes does not solve the problem. The transformation lies in curriculum relevance, faculty quality, and job outcomes. So investment should be benchmarked by how many students get skilled, placed, and progress in their careers.
Now, thank you very much. We have many more things to share. This is fascinating things, and it also brings a lot of old memories. In fact, the background which I provided for this one, I have not noted from any document. It is still, after 25 years, is still registered in my mind. So without looking any document or something, I could still say all those, and those memories came. And I knew this was a very difficult time, because working with the government bureaucracy, working with resistance from the industry, working with the resistance from the principal and staff of the training institutions, because everyone are in their comfort zone. Everyone. I had one very nice slide in the same presentation, but now time is not there, where I showed that we did a survey of everyone wanted, when we did a survey of different stakeholders, what the policymaker wants, what the industry wants, what the training center manager wants, what the staff wants. Everyone wants the other stakeholders to do the right thing.
Right.
Means what is the right thing. But for example, staff never wants to lose their government job or like a contractual condition. They doesn't want to be part of a industry management one where so no government bureaucrat wanted to give up their powers. So everyone wanted other stakeholders to do the right thing, but for them, they want to keep their own stake with them. So that's the biggest, so it's not about only policy making. It's not about this one. My experience was that it's a big change making process. And many times it doesn't succeed, not because the policy or the process was wrong, but because we never estimated the resistance behind those ones, and we never build the capacity of implementers how to facilitate this change management process, how to build the capacity of all the stakeholders to implement that one. And when it is not, this support was available with every institution. So in many institutions it didn't work well. And then nowadays I also hear, when a government of India do some surveys or studies, they say, oh, IMC didn't perform, it's not a good concept. Without going into nitty-gritty, why it performed in some institution, why it didn't perform in others, I think making a big judgment is not useful. Now, with this one, I think the best time to go for the closing remarks, and I will invite our colleague from the UNESCO, Mr. Ramon Ariet. So please take the floor. And let's hear from him. Also, it's very difficult to summarize the things, but also hear some of the experience of UNESCO. Raman, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Thank you, Ashwani. Thank you. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I'm not sure you can hear me very well.
Very
okay?
well. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. So thank you to the ILO for inviting UNESCO to participate in this highly relevant and timely event. We are proud to be long-standing partners in our shared commitment for strengthening skills development in countries around the world. As we bring this powerful gathering to a close, I want to thank our distinguished speakers for their insights and contributions to this conversation. Also, thanks to each one of you, leaders from the private sector, educators, policymakers, and development partners, for your energy, insights, and shared commitment to a bold and urgent goal, building a future where everyone has the skills to thrive. Today's conversations have made one thing clear. The private sector is not just a partner in skills development, it is a driving force. From preparing young people for the first job to helping workers reskill for new opportunities, the role of employers has never been more important or more promising. But we've also acknowledged the challenges. Many companies, especially small and medium enterprises, face barriers to engaging in training. The language of education doesn't always align with the language of business. And while digital innovation is transforming how we learn, not everyone is benefiting equally. So, where do we go from here? First, let's strengthen partnerships. When businesses and education systems work together, co creating curricula, shaping policies, and aligning expectations, everyone wins. Skills become more relevant, pathways become clearer, outcomes become stronger. Second, we must scale work based learning. Internships, apprenticeships, and on the job training remain the most effective tools for preparing people for real world challenges. But these opportunities must be accessible, structured, and inclusive. Third, we must embrace the idea of lifelong learning, not just as a slogan, but as a strategy. The workplace is evolving too fast for any one qualification to last a lifetime. Reskilling and upskilling must become part of the workplace culture, with public-private investment making learning continuous and affordable. Fourth, we must harness innovation. The private sector is pioneering new tools, platforms, and digital learning models, but we must ensure that they reach everyone everywhere. A tech-driven learning revolution that excludes the underserved is no revolution at all. Fifth, let's lead with inclusion. Equity is not charity, it's smart economics. When we equip women, youth, people with disabilities, and marginalized communities with strong foundational and technical skills, we unlock innovation, resilience, and productivity across the board. And finally, we must shape an enabling environment. Governments have a key role to play in aligning incentives, creating policy space for innovation, and amplifying the voice of employers in national skills ecosystem. Let me leave you with this. Skills are not just a means to employment, they are a foundation for dignity, agency, and opportunity. And when the private sector leads with purpose and partnerships, we do more than fill jobs. We shape futures. So let's leave here with a renewed sense of urgency and possibility. Let's move from discussion to action. Let's work together to build systems that are more inclusive, more dynamic, and more future ready. Because when the private sector leads in skills, everyone moves forward. Let's keep building that future together. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Raman, for this very nice summary and also giving key recommendations on the way forward. So with this one, I will say thank you very much to all participants and speakers for your active participation in today's masterclass. Special thanks to all colleagues who are behind the screen, for specifically Rashinder, Arushi, and many others. I'm not remembering everyone's name, but their names are also there, who had made excellent preparations and ensure that the whole event goes very smoothly. A heartfelt thanks to as well to ILO partners, NSDC, World Bank, UNESCO, and also today EDICO, and of course our ILO constituent in International Organization of Employers, how we can forget them, and also Professor Bijlani. I trust this event was valuable and informative for all of you. Please remember the recording of this webinar and all presentations will be shared and put up on the event website. We will share when these are available. We'll send an email to all of you. Please continue to follow our masterclass series, and we will return always with new interesting stories, examples. For example, 2 of our next classes will be focusing on very interesting topic. One, the innovations in Germany. So we are already working with the German stakeholders and preparing what is the, we always know German system as a dual training or the apprenticeship model, but there's much more beneath that one. So we'll be coming up with that one. And then also as the global, migration is increasing, so another one will be focused exclusively on the skilled migration. What are the fair and good practices on that one? With this one, I will request all the panelist speakers who are available now to, of course, they are all here for switch on their cameras, so that we can have some screenshot and record this one. With this one, I say thank you to all of you. We'll meet again. Stay healthy, happy, and peaceful. Thank you very much.